I think about conflict over the past 4,000 plus years, and it's frustrating to me because there's so many problems that are associated with conflict. And we've had conflict since, Cain and Abel, right? And what's happening is the history books and even the gurus out there on relationships are really good about talking about ideas and principles, philosophies. Now, I don't know about you, but I need something a little bit more helpful and strategic than philosophies and principles. When somebody says, be patient with somebody who's struggling, that's a really good concept. That's a really good idea. How? How do you do that? How am I supposed to be patient with somebody when I don't even know what the tactic or strategy is? And so philosophies and principles are out there, but tactics are missing. Let me kind of walk you through the background of this conflict frustration phenomenon that I have. You would think that with the billions, maybe trillions of dollars spent on wars, all right? And that the most amazing thinkers from, you got Plato, Aristotle, all of these amazing thinkers and philosophers. And yet when right now in 2021, we look at the books and we're looking at some of the people have devoted their lives to dealing with relationships. And I look at all that stuff and I'm wondering why we haven't dialed in to the nuts and bolts of dealing with conflict. Trillions of dollars, I don't know, countless lives since the beginning of time, and all we're coming up with is ideas, philosophies, and principles. One of the things that, I grew up going to church, with my parents. I'm still pretty churchy. And you look in the Bible. For anybody who believes in the Bible, what's the counsel and strategies of how to deal with conflict? Turn the other cheek. Okay, how am I supposed to do that and have things work out well for my teenager? Like, that idea, nice idea, but the tactics, we lose the outcome when we consider what the tactics are. How am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to love my spouse like Christ loved the church? When did the church have a bad day? When did they get moody? When did it get PMSy? When did it accuse you of something that you didn't do? Like, all of those scenarios are real life scenarios, and these philosophies and ideas come short. Now, over the past 20 years, I have devoted myself. Why? Because I hate conflict. Like, I grew up with 8 brothers and a mom and a dad who used old-fashioned discipline tactics. And when you have 8 brothers, you don't talk things out. You don't talk things through. You fight it out, okay? And after you're done fighting, then you pretend like everything's good. You get all that energy out of you and you're fine. Well, guess what? When you get married, that's illegal. You can't do that. And I've always wanted to have a great relationship. Always. Ever since I was one of those romantic guys that fell in love in kindergarten. I had crushes with let's not go there. I just didn't have the strategies, the tools, the tactics on how to deal with frustrations, disappointments, hurt feelings, myths, bugs. Had zero clue on how to do that. So, as a husband, now getting trained to be a therapist, I devoured as many books as I possibly could to help me become a better therapist and husband. Now, you probably have read books on relationships. I think we all have. And there are some fantastic books on relationships. But one of the things I've done is I've tried to help people read relationship books a little differently. There are the books that make us feel understood, that make us feel good, that make us, oh yeah, man, that author, oh, he nailed it, or she nailed it. That author is speaking to me. They understand me. And you feel good and you feel hopeful, but here's the problem. Where's the tools? What do you do when you finally finish reading the book and you close the cover and you're like, oh, that was a good book. That was a good book, right? And you put it on the shelf. What's next? What do we do? How does that book translate to change in our lives? And so there's a lot of books that would tell you, hey, this is a great strategy. Now, some of these books, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, okay? There are fantastic books. A lot of those books have inspired me. But I am a very simple-minded person. I need tactics. Principles don't work. Turning the other cheek, being kind, being loving, being patient, those are characteristic attributes, not tactics. I need tactics to develop the attributes. I didn't have the tactics. So when you read a book, there's a couple of things I want you to pay attention to. Do they give you nuts and bolts tools, phrases, okay, tactics, strategies, so that you can use those tools to build your relationship? Let me share with you a few books that you may be familiar with. Crucial Conversations, Critical Conversations. Now, that's one of my favorite books, okay, when it talks about conflict. Okay, I probably should save that one for last. But Crucial Conversations, Critical Conversations. Let me see if I can pull this up. What I want to do is I want to show you what Crucial Conversations, like the outline, looks like if someone were to draw it on a piece of paper. I'm going to try to find an image. I've seen one of these online, kind of a one-shot spreadsheet of how this works together. Okay, here's one of 4 pages. Okay, here you go. Here's a mind map. This will walk you through how this works. And I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'm not going to say anything. I just want you to look at this picture. And for you guys who are at home, try doing this. Just do a search. Conflict resolution skills or conflict resolution images. See if there's some pages out there that you could use. Okay. Share screen. Desktop. Oh, here we go. All right. If I click on this, it'll take me to the website. But what I want you to do is I want you to look at that image. And I want you to ask yourself, based on this mind map, this kind of flow chart for dealing with conflict, what's the likelihood of someone who's trained in this to be able to actually use it? I've had people who actually trained in Crucial Conversations, and I have them explain things to me. Now, I'm considered an expert in the field of conflict and conflict resolution. It's hard for me to remember all these things, let alone be able to use them in that moment, because when we are in conflict, our ability to process information is completely changed. We don't process information the same way. We can't. Our chemicals, the different parts of our brain are being operated. Instead of using our frontal cortex, we're using our limbic system. We're using our emotional reaction. So processing information when we're in that upset situation isn't going to work. So we've got Crucial Conversations, which is one of the number 1 books on the how-tos. Unfortunately, it's too complicated. Love languages. They've got love languages in relationships with marriage, love languages with your teen, love language with your child. And I think it's fantastic. It's great insight. But when we distill it down to what are the tools? How do I use that information to change the relationship? Oftentimes I find people using love languages as a hammer to hit the other person on the head with. You know my love language, so you need to communicate my love language. The other person says, well, you know my love language, so you should... Notice, nothing changed. There's no tools. There's no tactics on how to create change. So I was just reading the book, The Journey of the Heroic Parent was recommended to me, and I'm going to do a book report on that toward the end of January. But even in that book, I'm looking for the tactics, the tools, the strategies. Now, in Brad Reedy's book, Dr. Reedy's book, he has some, okay? Now, those are the I statements and reflective listening. If you do research on I statements and reflective listening, the reflective listening is really, really good. And that's something that most people when they do communication, reflective listening is really powerful and helpful. One of the things I like about Brad's book is that he doesn't have you parrot the information. He has you kind of integrate it and share it, which I love. Unfortunately, having I statements as your tactic only deals when you're the one sending the message. But usually in conflict, two people are sending the message, so I'm inadequate with my tools. Now, so when you look at a book, look for what are the tools to help you deal with the conflict. It's shocking to me, and this is why I ended up writing the book on turning conflict into closeness, was how little information there was after literally 6,000 years of human history. That's a long time. 6,000 years of human history, and I have to come up with nuts and bolts that I can use in a situation of conflict. That's ridiculous. So the fact of the matter is, conflict is everywhere, and we're poorly trained to deal with it. The point I'm trying to make is, if we do not embrace the reality of conflict and find tools to help us navigate the conflict, conflict itself will destroy the quality of our life. I better hurry. Some of you may have heard of the 75-year longitudinal study that Harvard did about happiness. Think about that. 75 years. Research has been following these people for 75 years. And in that, they found that the most important variable in the quality of happiness and the quality of people's lives is based on the quality of the relationship, the primary relationship they have. And you think about that. We all know intuitively that is true. On a second research, it's, well, what determines the quality of a relationship? The quality of the relationship, and this is a study done in Canada by a French couple, George and Caroline, Vaillant. It's spelled Valiant in English, okay, with two L's. But their research shows that the quality of a relationship, the hinge point of the quality of the relationship is how they deal with conflict. For me, that is totally true, because we don't get trained on how we deal with conflict. What happens is we focus on solutions, thinking that if we can come up with a solution that makes the problem go away, we don't have conflict. And that is baloney. We will always have conflict until somebody stops being themselves and wants to give in. In other words, that's a terrible relationship. Conflict is inevitable. So having the tools to successfully navigate conflict is a priority. Over the next 4 knowledge nuggets, I am going to do a deep dive, okay, in only 15 minutes, of those tactics and strategies so that you'll be able to handle conflict with greater composure. Some of these things are going to be reminders to you. Some of my clients are going to go, okay, I've heard this before. Yep, you're going to hear it 1,000,000 times until it becomes penetrated into your soul and tattooed into your heart. That's how well we need to understand this. We're not going to be able to use these tools simply by being acquainted with them. We need to be trained on how to do that.